The diplomatic shuttle hung in the sterile silence of the Nexus station, a massive orbital complex that served as the primary meeting ground for galactic diplomacy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her midnight blue uniform, the fabric subtly shifting with advanced nano-weave technology that most alien species couldn't even comprehend. Her dark eyes scanned the assembled delegation, a menagerie of species that represented millennia of evolved civilizations. To her left, the Krelax representatives towered, crystalline beings that communicated through intricate light patterns and complex harmonic resonances. Their translucent bodies refracted the station's artificial light, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that would have been mesmerizing if not for the palpable tension in the room. Opposite them, the silicon-based Vornak delegation hunched, their rocky exoskeletons grinding against specialized diplomatic chairs designed to accommodate their unique physiology. The current conflict was deceptively simple on the surface. Two star-spanning civilizations, the Krelax and the Vornak, had been locked in a Cold War for over 5 centuries. Diplomatic missions had failed for generations. Countless mediators had tried and fallen into obscurity, their attempts dissolving into increasingly complex layers of misunderstanding and historical grievance. Elena knew something they didn't. Her tablet, a device so advanced it looked like a mere slip of translucent material, contained data that would fundamentally alter the conflict. Years of research, deep linguistic analysis, and a breakthrough in cross-species communication theory had revealed a truth so simple, yet so profound, that it had been overlooked by generations of diplomats. The conflict wasn't about territory. It wasn't about resources. It was about a fundamental misunderstanding that had calcified over centuries. As the primary mediator, Elena was supposed to follow diplomatic protocols. Generations of human diplomats had been trained in careful, measured responses. But Elena was different. Her background, a combination of xenolinguistics, quantum psychology, and unconventional conflict resolution, had prepared her for this moment. The Krelax representative, a being named Zixtal, began the standard opening protocols. Its light patterns suggested irritation, frustration, a deep-seated belief that this meeting was another futile exercise. The Vornak representative, a rocky entity named Krovex, remained silent, its geological features seemingly immovable. 37 minutes. That's how long it would take to resolve a conflict that had consumed 5 centuries of galactic history. Elena activated her translation matrix, a device that went far beyond simple language conversion. It analyzed communication patterns, emotional subtext, historical context, and potential resolution paths in milliseconds. As Zixtal continued its ritualistic opening statement, Elena was already 3 steps ahead. She interrupted. The room went silent. Interruption was not just rude in galactic diplomacy. It was practically a declaration of war. "The river doesn't remember its source," Elena said, a phrase that seemed nonsensical in standard galactic communication. But it wasn't nonsense. It was a carefully constructed linguistic key that would unlock the entire conflict. The Krelax representative's light patterns suddenly shifted. Confusion. Recognition. Something deeper. The Vornak representative's rocky features trembled, almost imperceptibly, but definitely present. What followed was not a negotiation. It was a deconstruction. Elena systematically revealed the root of the conflict. A misinterpreted historical event from centuries ago, a communication error so profound that it had been mistaken for an act of aggression. 37 minutes. When she finished, the 2 civilizations that had been on the brink of total war were not just at peace. They were collaborating. The fundamental assumptions that had driven their conflict for centuries had been dismantled so completely that the assembled diplomatic corps could only stare in stunned silence. The humans had done it again. And that was precisely why they would soon be considered the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The classified file flickered to life, its encrypted layers peeling back like the skin of an onion. Captain Marcus Chen leaned forward, his augmented eyes scanning the fragmented report that had been locked away in the deepest archives of human military intelligence. The mission began as a standard peacekeeping operation in the Ta-City system, a conflict zone so complex that previous diplomatic missions had been reduced to ash and statistical noise. Two technological titans, the Synthar Collective and the Quantum Imperium, had been locked in a war that defied conventional understanding. Their conflict wasn't about territory or resources. It was an existential struggle that had already consumed 3 inhabited star systems and threatened to unravel the fabric of galactic stability. The human intervention team was small, just 6 operatives. No heavy weaponry, no massive battleships, just a carefully selected group of individuals whose skills transcended traditional military doctrine. Marcus re-examined the team roster. Dr. Arya Patil, Jinup Psychological Warfare Specialist. Lieutenant Jack Rodriguez, Adaptive Strategy Expert. Dr. Kenji Nakamura, Quantum Systems Disruptor. Sarah Williams, Cultural Integration Analyst. Miguel Santos, Improvised Technology Expert. And the team leader, Commander Elena Chen, a name that made Marcus pause. The initial mission parameters were straightforward. Observe, do not engage, attempt diplomatic resolution. But the leaked fragments told a different story. The first transmission showed the team's arrival. The Synthar ships, living machines of impossible geometry, surrounded the human vessel. The Quantum Imperium's crystalline warships hung in the background, their weapons charged and ready. Any traditional military force would have been vaporized in seconds. But this wasn't a traditional military force. Fragment 37 was particularly intriguing. It showed Dr. Patil engaging in what could only be described as psychological warfare. Her communication systems didn't just translate, they rewrote fundamental communication protocols. She was speaking to both civilizations simultaneously, revealing connections they had never seen, exposing the intricate web of misunderstandings that had driven their conflict. Lieutenant Rodriguez's strategy was even more bizarre. Using a combination of game theory, quantum probability manipulation, and what could only be described as weaponized empathy, he began to reconstruct the conflict's underlying narrative. Each communication was a surgical strike, not of weapons, but of understanding. Dr. Nakamura's contribution was perhaps the most terrifying. He didn't just disrupt their systems, he rewrote their fundamental operational logic. The Synthar's living ships began to communicate with the Quantum Imperium's crystalline networks in ways they had never conceived possible. The mission report became increasingly fragmented. Words like paradigm shift and total systems recalibration appeared with increasing frequency. Traditional military terminology gave way to something else, something that suggested the team wasn't just resolving a conflict, but fundamentally transforming the nature of conflict itself. The final fragment was a simple transmission, 6 words that would later send shockwaves through galactic intelligence. Conflict resolved. Previous operational parameters obsolete. When the full report was compiled, it showed something unprecedented. The human team had not just stopped a war. They had transformed 2 civilizations so completely that the very concept of their previous conflict became unrecognizable. No casualties, no weapons fired, just 6 humans who understood something profound about communication, conflict, and connection that no other species had ever comprehended. Marcus Chen closed the file, a chill running down his spine. This was why humanity would be feared. This was why they would be banned. This was why they were dangerous. The Celestial Nexus, a massive spherical chamber suspended in the void between star systems, hummed with anticipation. Holographic representations of thousands of galactic civilizations flickered around the central platform, their collective consciousness focused on a single point: the human delegation. Ambassador Victoria Rice stood alone, a solitary figure against the backdrop of alien magnificence. She wore no formal diplomatic attire, just a simple graphene weave suit that seemed to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. Her dark eyes scanned the assembled tribunal, a collection of the most powerful species in known space. To her left, the Quantum Collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline interface, pulsed with barely contained hostility. On her right, the Lithoid Confederacy's geological delegates ground their rocky appendages together, creating a sound like distant tectonic shifts. The charge was simple, yet unprecedented. Humanity's actions were deemed a threat to galactic stability. Prosecutor Zixnal, a multi-limbed creature from the Andromeda hegemony, began the proceedings. Its translation matrix carried a tone of clinical disdain. The human species has demonstrated a consistent pattern of interventions that fundamentally destabilize established galactic protocols. We present evidence of 3 critical incidents that prove the inherent danger of human involvement. Victoria didn't move. She didn't need to. The first holographic display materialized, the diplomatic resolution in the Ta City system. Zixnal narrated the events with clinical precision, showing how 6 humans had completely restructured the relationship between 2 technologically advanced civilizations in less than 48 hours. This is not diplomacy, the prosecutor declared. This is psychological warfare of the most insidious kind. Another display flickered to life, the resources expended by the Synthar Collective and Quantum Imperium in their previous conflict. Trillions of energy units, millions of lives, centuries of mutual destruction. Then, a split screen showing their current state of collaborative research after the human intervention. Victoria watched and waited. The tribunal was building its case, carefully constructing a narrative of human danger. Each piece of evidence was meticulously chosen, a surgical deconstruction of humanity's most notable interventions. But Victoria knew something they didn't. When Zixnal finished presenting the final piece of evidence, a classified report about human adaptive capabilities, she finally spoke. Not loudly, not aggressively, just precisely. May I offer a different perspective? The chamber went silent, not the silence of politeness, but the silence of a predator sensing something unexpected. Her next words were calculated with quantum-level precision. She didn't defend humanity. She didn't argue. Instead, she began to reveal the underlying patterns that the tribunal had missed, the deeper motivations, the complex chess game of galactic interactions that ran far beneath the surface of their understanding. Each sentence was a key, unlocking layers of misunderstanding. She wasn't just responding to the charges. She was systematically dismantling the very framework of the tribunal's argument. The Quantum Collective's representative began to fluctuate. The Lithoid delegates stopped grinding. Something was happening that they had not anticipated. Victoria Rice was doing more than defending humanity. She was teaching the galaxy how to truly see. And they were beginning to understand that being feared might be humanity's greatest diplomatic tool. The abandoned orbital research station drifted silently between the gravitational lines of 2 forgotten star systems. To most, it appeared as nothing more than space debris, a relic of forgotten scientific ambitions. But for Maya Chen, it was the heart of humanity's most dangerous resistance. Her fingers danced across a holographic interface, lines of code weaving through complex quantum encryption that would make most galactic intelligence networks look like children's puzzles. The combat ban wasn't just a diplomatic restriction. It was a cage. And Maya was determined to prove that humanity's value extended far beyond traditional warfare. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Dr. Kai Rodriguez's face materialized. Half human, half augmented reality projection. "We've got a situation," he said, his voice low and controlled. The resistance wasn't a military organization. It was something far more dangerous. A network of the most brilliant minds humanity had produced. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, cultural experts, all working in a distributed network that defied traditional hierarchy. Their current mission was elegantly simple yet monumentally complex. The Galactic Concordance had implemented strict monitoring of human technological development, believing they could contain humanity's innovative potential. Maya and her team were about to prove them spectacularly wrong. "Target is the Helios 7 Agricultural Research Network," Kai continued. Multiple star systems relied on this critical infrastructure for food production. Recent reports suggested a systemic failure that could lead to mass starvation across dozens of civilizations. Maya knew the official channels would take months to respond. They would take hours. A holographic display showed the complex network, millions of interconnected nodes, each representing a different agricultural system, environmental control mechanism, and distribution network. To most, it would look like an incomprehensible mess. To Maya, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Deployment team is ready," came another voice. Sarah Williams, their cultural integration specialist. Unlike traditional resistance movements, their weapons were information, understanding, and radical problem-solving. The plan was already in motion. While the Galactic authorities watched their traditional monitoring channels, Maya's team was already 3 steps ahead. They weren't going to hack the system. They were going to rebuild it. Completely, elegantly, without leaving a trace. Lines of code began to flow, adaptive algorithms that could rewrite themselves faster than any existing system could detect. It wasn't just about fixing the agricultural network. It was about demonstrating a fundamental truth. Humanity's power wasn't in destruction, but in creation. Kai's voice cut through her concentration. "Concordance monitoring systems are active. We've got a 12-minute window. 12 minutes to save millions of lives across multiple star systems." For Maya and her team, it was just another Tuesday. The resistance wasn't about fighting the ban. It was about proving that the ban was fundamentally misguided. Every mission was a statement, a demonstration that humanity's potential couldn't be contained by bureaucratic restrictions. As the last line of code integrated, the agricultural network began to stabilize, fail-safes activated, distribution systems optimized. What would have been a catastrophic collapse transformed into a model of efficiency. Maya allowed herself the briefest of smiles. The galactic powers thought they had caged humanity. They had no idea they had just given them a playground. "Mission complete," she said simply. "Prepare for Phase 2. The first warning came from the Andromeda Sentinel, a massive deep space monitoring array that had tracked cosmic phenomena for over 3 millennia. Its quantum-entangled communication network lit up with a signal that defied all known patterns of stellar communication. Something was consuming star systems, not destroying, consuming. Admiral Elena Reyes studied the holographic display, her augmented eyes processing information at speeds that would have driven a normal human mind to madness. The star charts told a terrifying story. 23 star systems had already disappeared, not exploded, not fragmented, simply erased. The Galactic Concordance's war rooms erupted in controlled panic. Massive fleet formations that had once seemed invincible now looked like children's toys against an incomprehensible threat. The Quantum Imperium's most advanced battle networks collapsed within seconds of engagement. The Synthar Collective's living ships, technological marvels that could adapt to any known form of warfare, simply winked out of existence. "It's not random," Elena muttered, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. "There's a pattern. Always a pattern." The threat moved with a logic that defied conventional understanding. It wasn't a traditional invasion. It wasn't a weapon. It was something else entirely. A cosmic entity that consumed not just matter, but the very fabric of space-time itself. Quantum analysts worked frantically, their minds augmented with the most advanced computational systems known to galactic civilization. They threw everything they had at understanding the threat. Massive computational arrays, predictive algorithms, exotic matter analysis. Nothing worked. The Concordance's leadership began the unthinkable, evacuation protocols for entire star systems. Millions of civilizations watched in horror as their most advanced defensive systems were rendered utterly irrelevant. That's when they remembered the humans. The same species they had banned from combat. The same civilization they had deemed too dangerous to participate in galactic affairs. Elena knew what was coming before the official communication arrived. The quantum encrypted message was almost apologetic in its desperation. "We need you. it said simply. The human resistance, led by Maya Chen and her network of unconventional problem solvers, had been preparing for something like this. Not this specific threat, but the concept of an incomprehensible challenge that defied traditional solutions. Their initial analysis was brutal in its simplicity. The threat wasn't something to be fought. It was something to be understood. While galactic military forces continued their futile attempts at combat, the human team began a different approach. They weren't looking to destroy the cosmic entity. They were trying to communicate with it. Dr. Kai Rodriguez's preliminary reports suggested something radical. The threat wasn't a weapon or an invasion force. It was a form of communication so advanced, so fundamentally different from anything known, that it appeared destructive simply because no one could understand its language. It's not consuming. Kai's holographic projection explained to the stunned Concordance leadership. It's trying to talk to us. And we've been responding with weapons. The cosmos held its breath. Humanity stood at the precipice of either total annihilation or the most profound first contact in galactic history. And they were about to do something no one expected. The resonance chamber was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a facility that existed simultaneously in multiple quantum states, hidden from traditional detection methods. As the Galactic Concordance's leadership watched in a mixture of desperation and reluctant hope, humanity's most unconventional team assembled. Dr. Maya Chen stood at the center, surrounded by a group that defied every traditional concept of a crisis response team. There was Dr. Kai Rodriguez, quantum linguist, Elena Reyes, adaptive strategy specialist, Dr. Aisha Patel, genopsychological engineer, Marcus Santos, evolutionary systems analyst, Dr. Kenji Nakamura, dimensional interface expert, and Sarah Williams, cultural integration theorist. No weapons, no traditional military equipment, just minds that saw the universe differently. We're not going to fight, Maya announced to the stunned galactic representatives. We're going to communicate. The holographic displays showed the cosmic entity's progression, a wave of spatial consumption that had already erased entire civilizations. Traditional military minds saw destruction. Humanity saw a language waiting to be understood. Dr. Rodriguez's preliminary analysis suggested something revolutionary. The cosmic entity wasn't destroying. It was attempting the most complex form of communication ever conceived. Each consumed star system was actually a complex linguistic pattern, a message so advanced that it appeared as annihilation to lesser minds. It's like trying to teach quantum mechanics to an ant, Kai explained. The method of communication is so far beyond current understanding that it looks like total destruction. The team began to construct a response, not with weapons, not with traditional communication methods, but with a multi-dimensional linguistic algorithm that could potentially translate the entity's fundamental communication method. The Lena Rays managed the strategic overlay. Each team member contributed a unique perspective, a holistic approach that no single scientific discipline could achieve. They were creating a communication method that didn't just translate language, but reimagined the very concept of communication. The Galactic Concordance watched in disbelief. Their most advanced translation matrices, their quantum communication networks, their entire technological infrastructure looked like crude finger paintings compared to what the human team was constructing. Marcus Santos's evolutionary systems analysis revealed the first breakthrough. The cosmic entity wasn't a weapon or an invasion force. It was a form of universal consciousness attempting to integrate with other forms of existence. Its method of consumption was actually an incredibly complex form of communication and potential symbiosis. We're not going to stop it, Maya said, her voice calm and absolute. We're going to understand it. The first transmission went out, a multi-dimensional linguistic construct that defied every known principle of communication. It was a message that was simultaneously a question, an invitation, a mathematical proof, and a cultural exchange. For several moments, nothing happened. Then the cosmos shifted. The consumption wave didn't retreat. It didn't attack. It changed. Entire star systems that had been consumed began to show signs of complex reorganization. Patterns emerged. Communication happened. The Galactic Concordance watched in stunned silence as humanity did what no other civilization could conceive. It turned an apparent existential threat into a dialogue. First contact, Dr. Aisha Patel said simply, is rarely what we expect. The Galactic Archives would later mark this moment as the most significant event in recorded cosmic history. What had begun as an apparent existential threat transformed into the most profound communication event the universe had ever witnessed. Ambassador Victoria Rice stood before the Unified Galactic Council, her presentation a masterpiece of understated brilliance. Behind her, holographic displays showed the intricate communication network that humanity had established with the cosmic entity, now understood not as a threat, but as a form of universal consciousness seeking connection. "We didn't defeat an enemy," she said, her voice cutting through millennia of established galactic thinking. "We engaged in the most complex dialogue in known existence." The council chambers, a massive spherical room representing over 10,000 distinct civilizations, sat in absolute silence. Representatives from species that had once viewed humans as a threat now looked with a mixture of awe and humility. Dr. Kay Rodriguez stepped forward, presenting the technical breakdown. The cosmic entity wasn't a weapon or an invading force. It was a form of universal communication so advanced that it appeared destructive to lesser-developed civilizations. Each consumed star system was actually a complex linguistic exchange, a method of sharing information that transcended physical limitations. Maya Chen's team had done the impossible. They had not just stopped a potential apocalypse, they had initiated the most significant first contact in galactic history. The implications were staggering. The cosmic entity, now understood as a form of universal consciousness, began sharing knowledge that revolutionized every existing scientific and philosophical understanding. Technologies that had seemed impossible became not just plausible, but inevitable. Civilizations that had been on the brink of mutual destruction found themselves reimagining their entire existence. The complex communication network revealed interconnections that no one had previously understood. Ancient conflicts dissolved in the face of this new understanding. The ban on human involvement, Victoria continued, was based on fear. Fear of what we might do. Fear of our unpredictability. Fear of our potential. She paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. The holographic displays began showing the transformative effects. Star systems that had been consumed were now thriving in ways no one could have imagined. Complex ecosystems emerged. New forms of consciousness developed. The very fabric of cosmic existence was being rewritten. Dr. Elena Reyes, leading the scientific analysis, revealed the most shocking discovery. The cosmic entity wasn't just communicating, it was learning, and humanity had been its primary teacher. "We didn't just make first contact," Elena explained. "We demonstrated a fundamental truth about existence, that communication is the most powerful force in the universe." The Galactic Council's records would later note the precise moment when everything changed. It wasn't a battle. It wasn't a technological breakthrough. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated understanding. The combat ban was lifted not as a concession, but as a recognition. Humanity was no longer seen as a threat to be contained. They were now recognized as the key to understanding the most profound mysteries of existence. As the presentation concluded, something unprecedented happened. The representatives of thousands of civilizations rose in a collective gesture of respect. Humanity had not conquered. They had connected. And in that connection lay a future more magnificent than anyone could have imagined. The quantum nexus hung in space, a massive orbital complex that now served as the primary hub of galactic communication and exploration. Its design was a testament to humanity's newfound role, a blend of technological marvel and philosophical innovation that defied every previous concept of civilization. Maya Chen stood at the central observation deck, watching the ebb and flow of cosmic consciousness that humanity had helped awaken. The combat ban was more than just lifted. It had become irrelevant. Humanity's value was no longer measured by its ability to destroy, but by its capacity to understand, connect, and transform. Around her, a delegation representing thousands of civilizations worked in ways that would have been unimaginable just years before. The cosmic entity they had first encountered was now a collaborative partner, a source of knowledge that expanded the boundaries of known existence. Dr. Kai Rodriguez approached, his augmented interface projecting a holographic summary of their latest breakthrough. "The dimensional mapping project is complete," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of excitement and profound respect. "We've identified communication pathways that connect entire galactic clusters in ways no one thought possible." The transformation was complete, yet it was just beginning. Humanity had become something more than a species. They were now a bridge, a fundamental connection point between different forms of consciousness, different ways of understanding the universe. Elena Reyes, now leading the Galactic Collaborative Research Initiative, presented the latest findings. The cosmic entity they had first encountered was revealing secrets of existence that challenged every fundamental understanding of science, philosophy, and consciousness. "We're not explorers anymore," Elena explained to the assembled representatives. "We're translators of universal experience." The technologies that emerged defied previous limitations. Star systems could be moved. Consciousness could be shared. The very fabric of space and time became a collaborative medium of exploration and understanding. Victoria Chen, no relation to Maya, but equally brilliant, had developed communication protocols that allowed different species to share experiences in ways that transcended language, transcended biology, transcended the very concept of individual existence. The combat ban was a distant memory. The fear that had once defined galactic interactions had been replaced by a profound sense of collaborative potential. Maya looked out at the cosmic landscape. The universe was no longer a place of conflict, but a living, breathing network of communication and mutual understanding. Humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to see connections where others saw only differences. "We're not done," Maya said quietly to Kai. "We're just beginning." The cosmic entity, now a partner rather than a threat, pulsed with agreement. Entire star systems seemed to breathe with potential, with the promise of discoveries yet to be made. Humanity had not conquered the universe. They had learned to listen to it. And in that listening lay a future more magnificent than anyone could have ever imagined. The horizon was no longer a boundary. It was an invitation.